The stagecoach rattled to a stop in a cloud of dust that tasted like failure and desperation. Lena Hart climbed down with one worn carpet bag and a spine made of pure spite. 28 years old, no family, no prospects, and exactly $4 to her name. The kind of broke that makes you dangerous. She'd answered an advertisement in the territorial newspaper, buried between cattle auction notices and land claims. Housekeeper needed. Remote ranch, room and board. Must be resilient. The word resilient had made her laugh out loud in that dirty boarding house room. Resilient. That's what people called you when they meant you'd already survived worse than they could imagine. The man waiting by the fence didn't look like he'd smiled since the last century. Cole Rourke stood 6 foot something of sun-weathered leather in silence. His hat brim cast a shadow that made his face hard to read, but Lena didn't need to see his eyes to know what lived there. She'd seen that look before, in her own reflection, back when the world had finished taking everything it wanted from her. Miss Hart. His voice came out like gravel sliding down a dry gulch. Mr. Rourke. She kept her chin level. Never show weakness. First rule of surviving men who thought they could read you. You understand the position? I understand you need someone to keep house and mind children. I understand the pay is fair and the work is hard. That about cover it? Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. Hard to tell with men like him. The children are... He stopped, started again. They're not easy. Lena almost laughed. Mr. Rourke, I've worked in mining camps where men killed each other over card games, and I've scrubbed blood out of floorboards in places you wouldn't stable your horse. Your children will manage just fine. He studied her for a long moment. You always this direct? You want someone who lies to make you comfortable? Hire someone else. You want the work done? I'm standing right here. Cole Rourke nodded once, sharp. Wagons this way. The ride to the ranch took 90 minutes through country so stark and beautiful it hurt to look at. Mountains rose in the distance like broken teeth against a sky too big for one person to hold in their mind. Scrub brush and wild grass rolled away on all sides, interrupted by the occasional twisted tree that had learned to survive without mercy. Cole didn't speak. Lena didn't mind. She'd had enough of men who filled silence with bullshit. When the ranch came into view, she felt something shift in her chest. It wasn't much. A 2-story house that had seen better decades, a barn that leaned slightly left, corrals that needed mending, and outbuildings scattered like afterthoughts. But it was clean, maintained. Someone had cared about this place once. My wife built most of this, Cole said suddenly. Sarah. She had vision. Had, past tense. Lena filed that away. She's gone 2 years now. His hands tightened on the reins. Fever took her in 3 days, didn't even have time to... He cut himself off. You'll have her room. The children sleep upstairs. They pulled up to the house. Before Cole could climb down, the front door banged open and 2 children spilled out onto the porch. The girl was maybe 10, all elbows and tangled dark hair, wearing a dress that had been patched so many times it was more patch than original fabric. The boy looked about 7, skinny as a rail, with his father's same wary eyes. Papa! The girl's voice carried hope and hunger in equal measure. You brought her? Emma, Thomas. Cole's voice went flat. This is Miss Hart. She'll be managing the house. You'll do what she says. Emma's face fell, just for a second, but Lena caught it. The girl had been expecting something else. Someone else, maybe. Yes, Papa, Emma whispered. Thomas said nothing, just stared at Lena like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Cole didn't hug them, didn't ruffle their hair, didn't even really look at them. He just climbed down from the wagon, grabbed Lena's bag, and headed for the house. You two show Miss Hart around while I tend the horses. And just like that, he was gone. Emma and Thomas stood on the porch like soldiers awaiting orders. Lena looked at them, really looked. The girl's dress was clean but threadbare. The boy's shirt had sleeves that stopped 2 inches short of his wrists. Both children had that particular stillness that came from learning not to take up too much space. Well, Lena said, you two going to stand there all day, or are you going to show me where I'm sleeping? Emma blinked. You want us to show you? That's what your father said, isn't it? He don't usually... Thomas started, then stopped. Looked at his sister. He doesn't usually talk to us much, Emma finished quietly. Jesus. Lena kept her face neutral. Well, he talked to you now, so let's make use of it. The inside of the house matched the outside, clean but hollow. Someone had scrubbed every surface until it shone, but there was no warmth to it, no clutter, no life. Like a museum dedicated to a family that used to exist. The children led her through a front room with furniture arranged in perfect right angles, a kitchen that smelled like lye soap and nothing else, and finally to a small bedroom on the first floor. This was Mama's sewing room, Emma said. Her voice went soft on the word Mama. Papa moved her things out last month. He said whoever came to help would need the space. The room held a narrow bed, a dresser with a cracked mirror, and a window that looked out over the eastern pasture. Lena set her bag on the bed. Your mama taught you to clean? Emma nodded. She said a clean house was a house that could think straight. Smart woman. She teach you to cook too? Some, but after Emma's voice caught. Papa don't want much, just beans and bread mostly. Says anything else is wasteful. Lena turned to face the children fully. You two eat the same? They nodded. Every day? Another nod. When's the last time you had a vegetable that wasn't a potato? Emma and Thomas looked at each other, Emma's face scrunched up in thought. Christmas, maybe? Papa's sister came and brought turnips. 6 months. These kids hadn't eaten a decent meal in half a year. Right. Lena rolled up her sleeves. Here's how this is going to work. You show me where everything is in this house. And I mean everything. Pantry, root cellar, linens, tools, all of it. Then we're going to make a list of what needs doing. Then we're going to figure out what your father's got against feeding his children like they're human beings. Understand? Thomas's eyes went wide. You can't talk about Papa like that. Why not? Because he's Papa. So, being a father doesn't make a man perfect. And from where I'm standing, he's doing a piss-poor job of keeping you two fed properly. Emma gasped. You cursed. I've done worse. You going to show me the pantry or not? For the first time since Lena had arrived, Emma smiled. Just a little one. But it was there. The tour revealed exactly what Lena had expected. A house maintained with military precision and absolutely no soul. The pantry held flour, salt, dried beans, and little else. The root cellar had potatoes and onions, but nothing green, nothing fresh. The children showed her where the dishes lived, where the linens were stored, where the firewood was stacked. Everything in its place. Everything functional, everything dead. Who does the cleaning? Lena asked as they finished. We do, Emma said. Papa says idle hands make for idle minds. Does he now? Lena looked around the spotless kitchen. And who cooks? Papa does breakfast. I do the other meals. Emma's voice carried a note of pride. I'm getting real good at beans. She was 10 years old and proud of cooking beans. Lena wanted to find Cole Rourke and shake him until his teeth rattled. Well, starting tomorrow, I'll handle the cooking. You and Thomas can help, but you're not carrying that load alone anymore. Emma's face did something complicated. Relief and disappointment mixed together. But Papa said I was doing fine. I'm sure you are, but that doesn't mean you have to do it forever. Lena softened her voice, just a fraction. You're a kid, Emma. You're supposed to have time to be a kid. Mama used to say that. Emma's eyes went shiny. Before. That word carried a whole world of loss. Thomas tugged on his sister's sleeve. We should show her the barn. Papa likes the barn kept nice. They led Lena outside into the late afternoon sun. The barn stood about 50 yards from the house, bigger than she'd expected, with a hayloft and stalls for at least a dozen horses. Only 3 were occupied. Cole was inside, brushing down one of the horses with steady, methodical strokes. He didn't look up when they entered. Children, go wash up for supper. But Papa, we're showing Miss Hart. Now, Emma. The children fled like rabbits. Lena stayed put. Cole continued brushing the horse. Something you need, Miss Hart? When's the last time those kids ate something besides beans and bread? His hand stilled. They eat fine. They eat like prisoners. When's the last time they had fresh vegetables? Meat that isn't dried to leather? A meal that took more than 10 minutes to prepare? Food is food. His voice went hard. They're not starving. No, they're not. But they're not thriving either. Those are growing children, Mr. Rourke. They need more than, I hired you to keep house, not tell me how to raise my children. You hired me to manage your household. That includes making sure the people in it don't waste away from malnutrition. Cole turned then, and the look on his face could have curdled milk. You've been here 2 hours and you're already what, doing my job? That's what you wanted, isn't it? Someone resilient, someone who gets things done. I wanted someone who'd follow instructions. Then you should have hired a dog. Lena crossed her arms. I'm not here to make you comfortable, Mr. Rourke. I'm here to run this house properly. That means those children are going to eat real food. It means this place is going to feel like a home instead of a mausoleum, and if you don't like it, you can find yourself another housekeeper. The silence stretched tight as a wire. Cole's jaw worked. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Finally, he spoke. You're awfully bold for someone who showed up with nothing but a carpetbag and an attitude. I'm awfully bold because I've got nothing left to lose. Makes a woman dangerous. Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite respect, not quite anger. Something in between. There's a garden plot out back, he said finally. My wife used to keep it. You can plant what you want, but you do the work yourself. I've got a ranch to run. It wasn't permission. It wasn't even encouragement, but it was something. Fair enough. Cole went back to brushing the horse. Supper's at 6. We eat in the kitchen. No fuss. Lena turned to go. Miss Hart. She stopped. Don't get too comfortable. This isn't a charity house. You don't work out, you're gone. Same goes for you, Mr. Rourke. You don't treat those kids like they're worth something. I'm gone. She walked out before he could respond. The first supper was exactly as grim as Lena had expected. Cole sat at the head of the table, silent as a tomb. Emma and Thomas ate their beans and bread without complaint, their eyes darting between their father and the new housekeeper like they were watching a play they didn't understand. Lena ate in silence too, but her mind was working. She'd dealt with hard men before, men who'd buried their hearts so deep they'd forgotten where they'd put them. The trick wasn't to dig the heart out. That just made them meaner. The trick was to create enough space for them to find it themselves. After supper, Emma started clearing the dishes. Lena stopped her. I'll handle that tonight. You and Thomas get ready for bed. But tonight I do it. Go on. The children hesitated, then obeyed. Cole stayed at the table, coffee cup in hand, staring at nothing. Lena washed the dishes in silence. When she finished, she spoke without turning around. I'm not here to replace your wife, Mr. Rourke. His cup hit the table with a sharp crack. I never said, you didn't have to. It's written all over this house, all over those kids, all over you. She turned to face him. But I need you to understand something. I can't do my job if you're going to treat every meal, every kindness, every small comfort like it's a betrayal of her memory. Cole's face had gone white. You don't know anything about, I know grief. I know what it does to people. And I know that those children upstairs are drowning in it because their father checked out the day their mother died. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. Get out. No. I said get out. And I said no. Lena held her ground. You hired me to do a job. Let me do it. Or fire me right now and find someone else willing to watch this family die slowly. Cole's chest heaved. His hands shook. For a moment, Lena thought he might actually hit her. Then he turned and walked out the back door into the night. Lena stood alone in the kitchen, her heart hammering. She'd pushed too hard too fast. She knew it. But sometimes you had to break a fever to cure the sickness underneath. Footsteps on the stairs made her turn. Emma stood in her nightgown, eyes wide. Is Papa angry? Lena took a breath. Yeah, honey, he is. Are you leaving? Not unless he drags me out by my hair. Emma's lip trembled. Mama used to fight with Papa too. Not mean fights, just she'd tell him when he was being stubborn. He'd get mad and go outside, then he'd come back and apologize. Your mama sounds like she was tough. She was the toughest. Emma's voice went thick. I miss her all the time. Even when I'm not thinking about her, I'm missing her. Does that make sense? Lena's throat tightened. Yeah, baby, that makes perfect sense. Thomas don't talk about her anymore. He's scared Papa will get sad. What about you? Emma looked down at her bare feet. I'm scared if I talk about her, I'll forget what her voice sounded like. so I don't talk about her either, but I think about her every single day. Lena crossed the kitchen and knelt down so she was eye level with the girl. You want to know something? Emma nodded. Talking about people we love who are gone doesn't make them disappear. It keeps them alive. Every story you tell about your mama, every memory you share, that's her, still here, still part of you. Papa don't see it that way. I know, but maybe he will, eventually. Emma studied Lena's face. You're different than the others. Others? Papa tried 3 housekeepers before you. They all left after a week, said he was too difficult, said we were too sad. 3 housekeepers. And Cole hadn't mentioned it once. Well, Lena said, I've been called difficult myself, so maybe we're a good match. Emma smiled, a real one this time. I'm glad you're here, Miss Hart. Call me Lena, and go on to bed now. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. After Emma went upstairs, Lena sat alone at the kitchen table. Through the window, she could see Cole's silhouette in the barn, backlit by a lantern. He stood there unmoving for over an hour. She didn't go out to him. Some battles you had to let a man fight alone. But when she finally went to bed in that small room that used to belong to a woman who'd loved this family fiercely, Lena made herself a promise. She would not let this place die. Not the ranch, not the children, and not the ghost of a man who still moved through these rooms like he was already buried. The next morning started before dawn. Lena woke to the sound of footsteps overhead, the children getting dressed. She pulled on her work dress and tied her hair back, then headed to the kitchen. Cole was already there making coffee over the stove. He didn't look at her when she entered. Morning, Lena said. Silence. Fine. They'd do this dance if you wanted. She started pulling out flour and eggs. I'm making breakfast. Real breakfast. You're welcome to eat it, or you can stick with whatever sadness you usually choke down. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. When Emma and Thomas came downstairs, they stopped dead at the sight of the table. Lena had made scrambled eggs, fried potatoes with onions, and toasted bread with butter. Sit, Lena said. The children sat. They stared at the food like it might vanish if they blinked. Eat, Lena commanded. Emma picked up her fork with trembling hands. She took a bite of eggs. Her eyes went wide. Then she started crying. Thomas looked panicked. Emmy, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It just tastes like when Mama made it. Cole stood up so abruptly his chair scraped across the floor. He walked out without a word. Lena's chest ached, but she kept her voice steady. Your mama was a good cook? Emma nodded, still crying. The best. She made everything good, even just eggs. Then we'll make sure you eat good food, in her honor. Thomas finally took a bite, then another. Then he started shoveling food in like he'd never seen a meal before. Slow down, Lena said gently. It's not going anywhere. After breakfast, Lena sent the children outside to do their morning chores, feeding chickens, collecting eggs, watering the garden plot. Then she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The house might have been clean, but it needed more than cleanliness. It needed life. She opened windows to let in fresh air. She moved furniture slightly, breaking the rigid formations. She found a quilt buried in a trunk and draped it over the couch in the front room. Small changes, but changes nonetheless. Around mid-morning, Cole came back inside. He stood in the doorway of the front room, staring at the quilt. That was Sarah's, he said quietly. I know, Emma told me. She said her mother made it. She did. His voice sounded scraped raw. Took her 2 winters. It's beautiful. Shame to keep it locked away. Cole's hands flexed at his sides. I put it away because seeing it every day. Hurt too much, I know. Lena turned to face him. But Mr. Rourke, everything in this house is hers. The furniture she picked, the curtains she sewed, the garden she planted. You can't lock all of it away. And those children? They're hers too. Every day you look at them, you're seeing her, so you might as well let them have the quilt. He stood there for a long moment. Then without a word, he turned and left again. But the quilt stayed. The days started to develop a rhythm. Lena would rise before dawn, make real breakfast, pack lunches for Cole to take out to the range, and spend the mornings working with Emma and Thomas. She taught Emma how to make bread properly, how to season food, how to turn simple ingredients into something that tasted like care. She taught Thomas how to mend his own shirts, how to organize the woodpile efficiently, how to do the work without making it joyless. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, the children started to change. Emma laughed more. Not often, but enough that Lena could count the occurrences. Thomas started asking questions instead of just nodding silently. They both ate like they were making up for lost time. Cole remained a shadow. He worked from sunup to sundown, came home exhausted, ate whatever Lena put in front of him without comment, and retreated either to the barn or to his room. He spoke to the children in short commands. He spoke to Lena even less. But he didn't tell her to leave. 2 weeks in, Emma came to Lena while she was working in the garden. "Miss Lena?" "What is it, honey?" "Can I ask you something?" "Any time." Emma twisted her apron in her hands. "Why'd you come here? To the middle of nowhere? To work for a man like Papa? With kids you don't know?" Lena sat back on her heels, wiping dirt from her hands. It was a fair question. "You want the truth?" Emma nodded. "I came here because I had nowhere else to go. I'd worked in places that broke pieces off my soul until there wasn't much left. And I thought, maybe out here, away from everything, I could find whatever it was I'd lost. Or at least figure out how to live without it." "Did you? Find it, I mean." Lena looked at the girl, skinny, hopeful, still carrying grief like a second skin. "I'm starting to think I might, but not in the way I expected." Emma smiled. Then, hesitantly, she reached out and took Lena's hand. They worked the garden together in comfortable silence until Thomas came running from the house, breathless. "Riders coming. Papa says get inside." Lena stood, shading her eyes against the sun. Sure enough, 3 riders were approaching from the east. Cole emerged from the barn, his face unreadable. "Get the children inside, Miss Hart." "Who are they?" "Neighbors. After a fashion." His voice had gone flat. "They don't need to see you." Something in his tone raised Lena's hackles. "And why is that?" "Just do it." "No." Lena stood her ground. "If there's something I should know, the town don't take kindly to unmarried women living in houses with widowers. People talk. I won't have you subjected to their—" He stopped. "Please, just go inside." The please surprised her. But Lena recognized the look in his eyes. He was protecting her, badly, clumsily, but he was trying. "Fine, but if they cause trouble, I'm coming back out." She ushered Emma and Thomas inside and watched through the window as the 3 riders pulled up. 2 men and a woman, all looking like they'd been carved from the same harsh stone as the land. The conversation was too far away to hear, but Lena could read body language. The woman was doing most of the talking, her gestures sharp and accusatory. Cole stood rigid, his jaw tight. One of the men kept glancing toward the house. The conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then the riders left, but not before the woman shouted something that made Cole's shoulders go rigid. When he came inside, his face was dark as a thunderhead. "What was that about?" Lena asked. "Nothing that concerns you. If it involves this house, it concerns me." Cole rounded on her. "They wanted to know who you were, what you were doing here. They've heard talk, the stagecoach driver runs his mouth, and they wanted to make sure I wasn't—" He trailed off, his face flushed. "Wasn't what?" "Wasn't dishonoring my wife's memory by having a woman in the house." The sheer stupidity of it hit Lena like a slap. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" Cole's voice was ragged. "That was Margaret Holloway. Her husband owns the land to the south. She's got opinions about how widowers should conduct themselves, and she's not shy about sharing them." "And what did you tell her?" "That you're the housekeeper, that everything is proper, that she should mind her own business." "I'm guessing she took that well." Cole's laugh was bitter. "She said if I valued my family's reputation, I'd get rid of you before the whole territory started talking." Lena felt rage bloom in her chest. "And are you going to get rid of me?" Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No. Those children have started eating again, started smiling again. I'm not taking that away from them because Margaret Holloway thinks she's the moral authority of the territory. It wasn't a declaration of trust, it wasn't even particularly warm, but it was something." "Good," Lena said, "because I'm not leaving." But that night, after the children went to bed, Lena found Cole on the porch, staring out at the dark horizon. She sat down beside him without asking permission. You're going to have trouble with them, she said. The neighbors. I know. They'll talk. Make up stories. Make this harder than it needs to be. I know that too. So why not send me away? Save yourself the headache. Cole was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because for the first time in 2 years, my children don't look like ghosts. And I don't know how you did it, but you did. And I'm not fool enough to throw that away because of gossip. Lena's throat tightened. They're good kids, Mr. Rourke. They just needed someone to see them. Cole. What? Call me Cole. If we're going to weather this storm together, we might as well use first names. Lena nodded. Cole it is. They sat in silence for a while. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. I haven't talked about Sarah, Cole said suddenly. Not since she died. Every time I tried, it felt like if I said her name out loud, I'd have to accept she was really gone. The kids feel the same way. I know, I see it in Emma's eyes. She wants to talk about her mother, but she's scared I'll fall apart. He let out a shaky breath. And the hell of it is, she's right. I would. Maybe that's okay. Maybe falling apart is part of putting yourself back together. Cole turned to look at her. In the dim light, his face was all shadows and hard angles. You talk like someone who knows. I do. What happened to you, Lena Hart? She considered lying, deflecting, but something about the darkness and the honesty in his voice made her want to match it. I had a husband once, and a daughter. They died in a fire while I was away working. By the time I got back, there was nothing left but ash and guilt. Her voice stayed steady. She'd learned how to do that. I spent 2 years trying to drink myself to death. Then I spent another year trying to work myself to death. Neither took, so I ended up here. Cole's face had gone soft. Christ, I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not telling you for sympathy. I'm telling you so you know I understand what it's like to have your whole world end and still have to wake up the next morning, and the morning after that, and every morning after, until you're not sure if you're living or just going through motions. And which are you doing now? Lena looked out at the dark land. I'm figuring that out. They sat together until the cold drove them inside. And for the first time since Lena had arrived, she felt like maybe, just maybe, this broken place might have room for someone like her after all. The first month passed in a blur of small victories and stubborn resistance. Lena woke before dawn every day, lit the stove, and made breakfast that actually tasted like someone cared. Eggs with herbs from the struggling garden. Bacon fried crisp, bread toasted with butter and honey when she could get it. The children ate like they'd been starving, which, in a way, they had been. Cole said nothing about the change, just ate what was put in front of him and left for the fields without comment. But Lena noticed he'd stopped making his own breakfast, stopped reaching for the bean pot first thing in the morning. That was progress, even if he'd never admit it. Emma started lingering in the kitchen after meals, watching Lena work with hungry eyes. Can I help? She asked one morning, her voice small. Always. Grab that bowl and start mixing. They fell into a rhythm. Emma learned to knead dough properly, to season food so it sang instead of just existing. Lena taught her tricks she'd picked up in a dozen different kitchens. How to stretch ingredients when money was tight. How to make tough meat tender. How to turn nothing into something. Mama used to cook like this, Emma said one afternoon, her hands deep in bread dough. She said food was how you showed love when words weren't enough. Your mama was right. Do you think she'd mind that you're teaching me her recipes? Lena stopped chopping onions and looked at the girl. I think she'd be glad someone's making sure you know them. Recipes are meant to be passed down, not buried. Emma's eyes went shiny. Papa won't talk about her, won't say her name. It's like he thinks if he doesn't mention her, it won't hurt so much. How's that working for him? It's not. He just hurts quiet instead of loud. Smart kid. Too smart for 10 years old. What about you? You hurting quiet too? Emma nodded. If I cry, Thomas cries. And if Thomas cries, Papa looks like he's going to break. So I just don't. Not where anyone can see. Lena's chest ached. That's a heavy load for someone your size to carry. It's okay. I'm strong. Mama said so. I'm sure you are. But even strong people need to cry sometimes. It's not weakness. It's just being human. Is that why you cried the other night? I heard you, in your room. Lena should have been embarrassed, should have deflected, but something about Emma's directness demanded honesty in return. Yeah, I was thinking about my daughter, about all the things I should have taught her and never got the chance. What was her name? Rose. She was 5 when she died. Had your same stubborn streak. Emma smiled a little. Were you a good mama? I tried to be. Don't know if I succeeded, but I loved her with everything I had. Then you were good. That's what matters. Out of the mouths of children. Lena turned back to her onions before Emma could see her face crumple. Thomas was harder to reach. He was quieter than his sister, more inclined to watch than talk. But he followed Lena around like a shadow when she worked outside, helping without being asked. One afternoon, she found him in the barn, trying to fix a broken stall door with tools too big for his hands. That giving you trouble? She asked. He jumped, nearly dropping the hammer. I can do it. I'm sure you can, but it might go faster with help. They worked together in silence until Thomas finally spoke. Papa used to fix things with me. Before Mama died, he'd show me how and let me try. Now he just does everything himself. Maybe he's forgotten how to teach, or maybe he don't want me around. Lena set down her tools and looked at the boy, 7 years old and already convinced his father didn't want him. Your papa loves you, Thomas. He's just lost right now. Lost people do strange things. Are you lost? The question caught her off guard. I was. Maybe still am a little, but I'm finding my way. How? By showing up every day and doing the next thing in front of me. That's all any of us can do. Thomas considered this. The next thing for me is fixing this door. Then let's fix it. They worked until the door swung smooth and true. Thomas's face lit up with pride. I did it. We did it, and your papa's going to notice. Trust me. Sure enough, when Cole came in that evening and saw the repaired door, something flickered across his face. He found Thomas in the house. You fixed that stall door? Thomas nodded, nervous. Good work. Hung straight and everything. Lena helped. Cole's eyes cut to her. Did she now? I mostly supervised, Lena said. Thomas did the real work. Cole looked at his son for a long moment. Then he reached out and ruffled the boy's hair, the first physical affection Lena had seen him show since she'd arrived. Your mama would have been proud. She always said you had good hands. Thomas's whole face transformed. Really? Really? She used to say you got her patience and my stubbornness, best of both. It was such a small thing, a few words, a touch, but Thomas carried it like treasure for days. The trouble started 6 weeks in, on a Saturday when Lena took the children to town for supplies. Cole had work on the ranch and said they'd be fine going alone. Lena should have known better. The general store was busy, full of women shopping and gossiping. Lena kept her head down and her mouth shut, gathering what she needed while Emma and Thomas explored the candy jars with wide eyes. She was paying for flour when she heard it. That's her, the one living in the Rourke house. Lena didn't turn around, just counted out coins while her jaw tightened. I heard she's not even a proper housekeeper, just some woman Cole found desperate enough to work cheap. Margaret Holloway says she's good with the children. Margaret Holloway would defend the devil himself if he showed up with manners. Doesn't make it right. A woman alone in a house with a man. People talk. Well, there's smoke, there's usually fire. Lena's hand stilled on the counter. The shopkeeper, a kind-faced man named Joseph, gave her a sympathetic look. Don't mind them, he said quietly. Small minds make small talk. But Lena's temper had already sparked. She turned around to face the two women, both middle-aged, both dressed in their town finery, both looking at her like she was something they'd scraped off their shoes. You've got something to say to me, Lena said, her voice level and dangerous. Say it to my face instead of whispering like cowards. The women's faces flushed. One of them, a pinch-faced blonde named Ruth Carmichael, lifted her chin. We're just concerned about the Rourke children, growing up in a household without proper moral guidance. Moral guidance. Lena repeated the words like they tasted bad. You mean me? We mean the situation. A young woman, unmarried, living under the same roof as a widower. It's unseemly. What's unseemly is two grown women standing in a public store questioning the honor of someone they don't know. Lena's voice cut like a blade. I'm the housekeeper. I keep house. I cook, I clean, I mind the children. That's all. If your minds are dirty enough to imagine something else, that's your problem, not mine. There's no call to be rude. There's every call. You're spreading poison about a man who lost his wife and is trying to keep his family together. You're making those children's lives harder because you've got nothing better to do than invent scandals where there aren't any. Lena stepped closer. Let me make something very clear. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if you approve of my job or my living situation or anything else about my life. I care about those 2 kids who hadn't had a decent meal in months before I showed up. I care about a man so buried in grief he'd forgotten how to be a father. That's what matters. Not your opinions. Ruth's face had gone red as a beet. Well, I never... Clearly. If you had, you'd know how to mind your own business. Lena grabbed her purchases and called for the children. Emma and Thomas hurried over, eyes wide. They'd heard everything. As they left the store, Lena could feel every eye on her back. Let them look. Let them talk. She was done apologizing for existing. The ride home was quiet. Too quiet. Lena kept the horses moving at a steady pace while her mind raced. She'd lost her temper, made enemies, probably made things harder for Cole and the children. Miss Lena? Emma's voice was small. What those ladies said. About you and Papa. Is that what everyone thinks? Lena's hands tightened on the reins. Some people will always look for the worst in others. Makes them feel better about their own lives. But it's not true, right? You and Papa aren't true. No, we're not. Lena kept her eyes on the road. Your Papa hired me to do a job. That's all this is. But you like us, right? You're not just here because you need the money? The vulnerability in Emma's voice cracked something in Lena's chest. I'm here because I need the money. That part's true. But I stay because I like you. Because your brother makes me laugh. Because your Papa's a good man who's had bad luck. Because this place, for all its problems, feels more like home than anywhere I've been in a long time. Emma seemed satisfied with that answer. Thomas just stared out at the passing landscape, his face unreadable. When they got back to the ranch, Cole was waiting in the yard. One look at Lena's face and his expression darkened. What happened? Nothing, just town gossip. What kind of gossip? Lena climbed down from the wagon. The kind that questions why an unmarried woman is living in your house. The kind that suggests we're doing something improper. The usual small-minded garbage. Cole's jaw went tight. Who said it? Doesn't matter. It matters to me. Who? Ruth Carmichael and some other woman I didn't know. But Cole, it doesn't... He was already striding toward the barn. I'm going to town. No, you're not. Lena caught his arm. You can't fight every person who has an opinion. That's not how this works. I can damn well tell Ruth Carmichael to keep my name out of her mouth. And then what? She'll tell everyone you came storming into town to defend my honor, which will just convince them there's something to defend. You'll make it worse. Cole stopped, turned to face her. So what do you suggest? We just let them talk? We let them talk and we live our lives in a way that proves them wrong. We don't give them ammunition. Lena's voice was firm. I can handle gossip, Cole. I've handled worse. But I need you to trust me to fight my own battles. This isn't just your battle. They're talking about my family. Then protect your family by not doing anything stupid. They stared at each other, both stubborn, both angry for different reasons. Finally, Cole exhaled hard. I don't like this. I know, but charging into town like an avenging angel isn't going to help anyone. He was quiet for a moment. Then, what did you say to them? I told them to mind their own business, possibly in less polite terms. Despite everything, Cole's mouth twitched. You told Ruth Carmichael to mind her own business. I might have called her a coward too. Jesus, Lena. She was whispering about me like I wasn't standing right there. What did she expect? She expected you to be meek and apologetic, like most women are when confronted by the town matrons. Then she picked the wrong woman to gossip about. Cole studied her face. You're not going to make this easy, are you? When have I ever made anything easy? Fair point. He turned to the children, who were still sitting in the wagon, watching the adults with wide eyes. You two get those supplies inside. And Thomas, stop feeding that rabbit at the dinner table. I've told you twice. The children scurried off. Cole turned back to Lena. They're going to keep talking. This won't be the end of it. I know. It might get worse before it gets better. I know that too. And you're still staying? Lena looked at this man who was trying so hard to protect her in his clumsy, bull-headed way. I told you before. I'm not leaving unless you drag me out by my hair. A little gossip isn't going to scare me off. It's not a little gossip. Ruth Carmichael has influence. If she decides to make this her crusade, then we'll deal with it together. Lena's voice softened. Cole, I've survived things that would break most people. I can survive some bored women with too much time and too little sense. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face. But finally, he just nodded. All right. We do it your way. For now. Such faith. Don't push it. That night, after supper, Emma knocked on Lena's door. Can I come in? Of course. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, twisting her hands in her lap. I'm sorry about what those ladies said. About you. It's not your fault, honey. But it's because of us. Because you work here. If you worked somewhere else, they wouldn't say those things. Lena sat beside her. If I worked somewhere else, different people would say different things. That's how the world works. People talk. It's what they do. It's not fair. No, it's not. But fair and real are two different things. Emma looked up at her with those two old eyes. Are you going to leave because of what they said? Not a chance. Promise? I promise. It's going to take more than Ruth Carmichael's wagging tongue to run me off. Emma smiled a little. Then, hesitantly, she leaned against Lena's shoulder. I'm glad you're here. Even if people are mean about it. Lena put her arm around the girl. Me too, baby. Me too. The next Sunday, Cole announced they were going to church. We're what? Lena stared at him. Church? As a family. Time we started showing up again. Cole, that's a terrible idea. After what happened in town, we need to show up even more. Show them we've got nothing to hide. His jaw was set in that stubborn line Lena had come to recognize. We stop going to church, stop going to town, we're admitting they're right. That there's something shameful about this arrangement. I won't do that. You're going to walk into a room full of people who think the worst of us and just, what? Smile and nod? I'm going to walk in with my family and dare anyone to say something to my face instead of behind my back. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Lena couldn't decide which. And if they do say something, then I'll handle it, calmly, like you said. He looked at her. But I'm not hiding, and I'm not letting you hide either. You're part of this family now, whether the town likes it or not. Part of the family. The words settled around Lena like a blanket. Fine. We'll go to church. But if Ruth Carmichael starts something, she won't, not with the Reverend watching. The Sunday service was exactly as uncomfortable as Lena had anticipated. Every eye in the small chapel turned when they walked in. Whispers followed them down the aisle. Cole kept his head high, one hand on Thomas's shoulder, the other on Emma's. Lena walked beside them, feeling like she was marching into battle. They sat in what had apparently been the Rourke family pew. Cole settled in like he owned the place, which technically he did. His family had donated the land the church sat on. Ruth Carmichael sat 3 rows back, her face pinched with disapproval. Constance Webb sat beside her, whispering frantically. Other families watched with varying degrees of curiosity, judgment, or sympathy. The Reverend began his sermon on forgiveness and loving thy neighbor. Lena wondered if it was coincidence or if he'd chosen the topic deliberately. Halfway through the service, Emma reached over and took Lena's hand, just held it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Several women noticed. The whispers intensified. Lena squeezed Emma's hand and kept her eyes forward. Let them talk. This child needed her, and that was all that mattered. After the service, as people filed out, the Reverend made a point of greeting the Rourke family warmly. Good to see you back, Cole. And Miss Hart. The children look well. Thank you, Reverend. I hope we'll see you regularly from now on. Community is important, especially in difficult times. It was a subtle message, but Lena caught it. The Reverend was on their side. That would matter. Margaret Holloway appeared next, her daughters in tow. Cole, Lena, children. Margaret. I hear there's been some talk in town about your household arrangements. Cole's face went hard. There's always talk. Indeed, which is why I wanted you to know that anyone who has a problem with how you run your family can take it up with me. I'll be happy to set them straight. She looked directly at Ruth Carmichael, who was hovering nearby trying to eavesdrop. Very happy. That's kind of you, Margaret. It's not kindness, it's common sense. You've got a good woman helping your family. Anyone too stupid to see that doesn't deserve my time or yours. She nodded briskly and walked off, leaving Ruth sputtering. On the ride home, Cole was quiet. Finally, he spoke. That went better than expected. Did it? I felt like I was on display at a county fair. You were, but you didn't flinch. That matters. He glanced at her. Margaret taking our side matters too. She's got influence. If she's defending you, others will think twice before talking. Or they'll talk more quietly. Let them. As long as they're not hurting the children, I don't care what they say. But Lena could see in his face that he did care. That every whisper, every judgmental look, every snide comment about his family ate at him. Cole Rourke might project strength, but underneath he was still raw from losing Sarah. Still vulnerable to the world's opinions about how he should grieve and rebuild. That evening, as Lena was cleaning up after supper, Cole appeared in the kitchen doorway. I need to say something. Lena set down her dish rag. All right. When I hired you, I thought I just needed someone to keep the house running, cook meals, mind the children, keep things organized. He moved further into the room. I didn't think you'd become important to all of us. Cole, let me finish. The children are happier than they've been in 2 years. They smile. They laugh. Emma talks about the future like she has one. Thomas is learning things again instead of just existing, and He stopped, started again. I don't feel like I'm drowning anymore. Like every day is just another day to survive. I feel like maybe there's a point to it all again. Lena's throat was tight. You did that, not me. You chose to start trying again. Because you didn't give me a choice. You walked in here and kicked the door down on my grief and made me see what I was doing to my children, to myself. His voice roughened. I'm grateful for that. More grateful than I know how to say. You're saying it pretty well right now. I'm trying to say people are going to talk. They're going to make assumptions and spread rumors and try to make our lives difficult. And I'm sorry for that. Sorry you have to deal with it because you decided to help us. I'm not sorry. You should be. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. The moment I decided to stay, it became my fight. Lena moved closer. Cole, I knew what I was getting into. Knew people would talk. Knew it would be hard. But I also knew those children needed someone, and you needed help whether you'd admit it or not. So I stayed. And I'll keep staying, gossip be damned. Cole looked at her for a long moment. You're a hell of a woman, Lena Hart. Remember that next time you want to charge into town to defend my honor. Can't promise that. Then at least warn me first so I can stop you. He smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look years younger. Deal. The weeks that followed established a new normal. They went to church every Sunday, heads high, daring anyone to comment. The children thrived under Lena's care, growing healthier and more confident. The house felt alive again, filled with cooking smells and conversation and occasional laughter. The gossip continued, but quieter now. Margaret Holloway made good on her promise to defend them, and others followed her lead. The Reverend mentioned the importance of community support in his sermons, pointedly looking at certain parishioners. Slowly, grudgingly, the town began to accept that the Rourke household, while unconventional, wasn't scandalous. But Lena knew better than to relax completely. In her experience, the storm always came when you least expected it. And she was right. The wildfire would change everything. The morning started wrong. Lena woke to the smell of smoke. Not the good kind from a breakfast fire, but something sharper, meaner. She threw open her window and saw it on the horizon, a dark smudge against the pale dawn sky, growing wider even as she watched. She was dressed and out the door in under a minute. Cole was already in the yard, staring west with a spyglass. His face had gone the color of old bone. How bad? Lena asked. Bad. He lowered the glass. Fire started in the dry grasslands about 15 miles out. Wind's pushing it this direction. How long do we have? If it keeps moving like this, maybe 6 hours. Maybe less. He turned to her. I need to ride out, help coordinate the fire break with the other ranchers. You need to get the children ready to evacuate. Where to? Town. It's 20 miles east. Take the wagon, take whatever you can carry that matters, and go. Don't wait for me. Emma appeared on the porch in her nightgown, Thomas right behind her. Papa, what's happening? Cole's jaw worked. There's a fire coming. Miss Lena's going to take you somewhere safe. What about you? Emma's voice went high and thin. I'll be fine. I'll meet you in town after we get the fire break dug. He was already moving toward the barn. Lena, I mean it. Don't wait. If that fire jumps the break, it'll move faster than you can run. He was gone before she could respond, riding out on his fastest horse like the devil himself was chasing him. Lena turned to the children. Get dressed. Warm clothes, sturdy boots. Grab anything you can't replace. Pictures, keepsakes, whatever matters. We leave in 30 minutes. Emma's face crumpled. But Mama's quilt. We'll take it. Now go. The next half hour moved in frantic blur. Lena loaded the wagon with water barrels, food supplies, blankets. She grabbed the lockbox from Cole's study that she assumed held important papers. She helped Emma carefully fold Sarah's quilt and pack it in a trunk, along with a carved wooden box that held letters in a woman's handwriting. Thomas brought his mother's Bible, not because he was religious, Lena knew, but because Sarah's handwriting filled the margins. Emma clutched a rag doll so worn it was barely holding together. They were loading the last trunk when Lena noticed the smoke had grown darker, closer. The wind had shifted. Get in the wagon, she told the children. Now. Emma climbed up, but Thomas stood frozen, staring at the barn. Thomas, come on. Marigold, he whispered. What? My rabbit. Marigold, she's in the barn. I forgot her. Before Lena could stop him, he was running. Thomas, no! But the boy was fast and terrified, and Lena knew that kind of fear made children do impossible things. She turned to Emma. Stay in this wagon. Do not move. You understand me? Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. Lena ran after Thomas. The barn was dim and smelled like hay and horse sweat. Thomas was in the back corner, struggling with the latch on a small wooden hutch. She's scared, he sobbed. She won't come out. Lena knelt beside him. Inside the hutch, a brown rabbit with white spots huddled in the corner, nose twitching frantically. Okay, we'll get her. Lena reached in slowly, talking in a low voice. Come on, girl. We're not leaving you behind. The rabbit let Lena scoop her up. She handed the trembling animal to Thomas. Hold her tight. Let's go. They were halfway back to the wagon when Emma screamed. Lena spun around and saw it. A wall of flame cresting the western hill, moving faster than seemed possible. The wind had pushed it straight toward them, jumping whatever firebreak the men had managed to dig. Run! Lena grabbed Thomas's hand and they sprinted for the wagon. She threw the boy up beside his sister, climbed up herself, and snapped the reins hard. The horses lurched forward, eyes rolling white with fear. They could smell the smoke now, see the fire bearing down on them. Lena pushed them faster than she should have, the wagon rattling and bouncing over ruts that threatened to crack an axle. Behind them, the fire roared like something alive and hungry. Emma was crying. Thomas had his face buried in the rabbit's fur. Lena kept the horses moving, her eyes on the eastern horizon, where safety waited if they could just get there fast enough. They made it maybe 2 miles before Lena realized they weren't going to outrun it. The fire was moving too fast, feeding on the dry grass and decades of drought. Even pushing the horses to their limit, the smoke was getting thicker, the air hotter. In another 10 minutes, they'd be caught. Lena's mind raced. The creek. There was a creek that ran through the eastern section of Cole's property, about half a mile north. If they could reach it, get into the water. She yanked the reins, turning the wagon hard. The horses fought her, but she was stronger, meaner, and absolutely not going to let these children die. What are you doing? Emma shrieked. There's a creek. We can shelter in the water until it passes. Papa said go to town. Your papa didn't know the fire would move this fast. Hold on. The wagon careened across open country, bouncing so hard Lena's teeth rattled. Behind them, the fire was close enough now that she could hear it, a crackling roar that made the horses scream. The creek appeared like a miracle, a thin ribbon of water cutting through the scorched land. Lena pulled the horses to a halt, jumped down, and started unhitching them. "What are you doing?" Thomas yelled. "Letting them run. They'll find their way to town." She slapped the last horse on the rump, and it bolted, the others following. "Get in the water, now!" She grabbed the children and pulled them down the bank into the creek. The water was shallow, barely 3 feet at its deepest, and cold enough to make them gasp. Lena found a spot where the bank overhung slightly, creating a small pocket of shelter. "Get down! Get your heads wet! Soak your clothes!" She grabbed Emma's shoulders. "Listen to me. The fire's going to pass over us. It's going to be hot and loud and terrifying. But if we stay in the water, if we keep our heads down and breathe through wet cloth, we'll survive. You understand?" Emma nodded, her whole body shaking. "Thomas?" The boy clutched his rabbit to his chest. "Marigold, we'll be fine. Rabbits are tougher than they look." Lena pulled off her shawl, dunked it in the water, and wrapped it around both children's heads. "When I say breathe, you breathe. When I say hold, you hold. Got it?" They nodded. The fire hit 30 seconds later. It wasn't like anything Lena had imagined. The heat came first, a wave of it that made the air shimmer and turned the water around them warm. Then the sound. A roar so loud it drowned out everything else. The sky turned orange, then red, then a weird yellow-gray as smoke filled everything. Lena kept the children pressed against the bank, their heads covered, her own body shielding them as much as possible. Embers rained down, hissing as they hit the water. The heat was so intense, Lena's exposed skin felt like it was blistering. "Breathe!" she yelled over the roar. They breathed through the wet cloth, coughing, choking, but breathing. A burning tree branch fell into the creek 10 feet away, sending up a plume of steam. Emma screamed. Lena held her tighter. You're okay. Just hold on." Time stopped meaning anything. It could have been 5 minutes or 50. All that existed was the fire, the water, the desperate need to keep breathing. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the worst of it passed. The roar faded to a crackle. The air, though still thick with smoke, became breathable. Lena lifted her head and looked around. The world had turned black. Everything, the grass, the few scattered trees, even the ground itself, was scorched and smoking. Ash fell like snow. The wagon, still parked where they'd left it, was a charred skeleton. But they were alive. "Stay here," Lena croaked. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. "I'm going to check if it's safe." She climbed up the bank, her legs shaking. The heat radiating from the burned earth made her stumble. Everything smoldered. Nothing lived. Except them. She turned back to the children. "Come on, we need to move before the smoke gets worse." They climbed out of the creek, soaked and shivering despite the heat. Emma's dress was torn and blackened. Thomas's face was streaked with soot and tears. The rabbit, miraculously, was still alive, tucked inside Thomas's shirt. "Which way?" Emma asked. Lena looked around, trying to orient herself in a landscape that no longer had any landmarks. The sun was a dim orange disk behind the smoke. East. They needed to go east. "This way. Stay close to me." They walked through the burned wasteland, the ash still hot enough to burn through their boots. Lena kept the children moving, knowing that stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant understanding just how close they'd come to dying. They'd gone maybe a mile when Lena heard it. Hoofbeats. She spun around, putting herself between the sound and the children until she saw who it was. Cole rode through the smoke like something out of a nightmare, his horse lathered and wild-eyed, his face black with soot. When he saw them, he nearly fell off the horse. "Jesus Christ," his voice broke. "Jesus Christ, you're alive." He hit the ground running and grabbed Emma first, then Thomas, pulling them both against his chest so hard they squeaked in protest. Then he looked at Lena. "I told you to go to town." "Fire moved too fast. We sheltered in the creek." "The creek?" He looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "You took them into the water." "It was that or burn. I chose water." Cole's face did something complicated. Then he crossed the distance between them and pulled her into a hug so fierce it knocked the breath out of her lungs. "You saved them," he whispered against her hair. "You saved my children." Lena's chest hitched. She hadn't cried during the fire, hadn't cried while holding the children in that creek, while the world burned around them. But now, in Cole's arms, with his children safe and the danger past, something broke loose inside her. I thought we were going to die, she said. I thought I was going to lose them. But you didn't. You got them out. He pulled back, his hands on her shoulders. How did you know about the creek? I didn't. I just knew we couldn't outrun it, and water was the only thing that made sense. She wiped her eyes with a hand that came away black with soot. The wagon's gone. The horses ran. I don't know if they made it. Don't care about the wagon. Don't care about the horses. Cole's voice was rough. You're all alive. That's all that matters. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. Papa, what about the ranch? Cole's face went still. He didn't answer. Papa? I don't know, baby. I haven't been back yet. I was looking for you. They rode double back to the ranch, Emma and Thomas on the horse with Cole, Lena walking alongside because the animal was already overloaded. Every step revealed more devastation. The fire had torn through everything in its path, leaving nothing but ash and blackened earth. When the ranch came into view, Lena's heart sank. The house was still standing, a miracle she couldn't explain, scorched and blackened around the edges, windows cracked from the heat, but standing. The corrals were gone, the outbuildings were gone, and the barn was a smoking ruin. Cole slid off the horse like a man in a dream. He walked toward what was left of the barn, his steps slow and mechanical. The children started to follow, but Lena stopped them. Let him go. But let him go. They watched as Cole stood in front of the collapsed structure that had been his refuge, his sanctuary, the place where he'd hidden from grief for 2 years. Watched as his shoulders started to shake. Watched as he dropped to his knees in the ash. Emma made a small sound. He's crying. Yeah, honey, he is. Papa, don't cry. Everybody cries eventually. Thomas's hand slipped into Lena's. What do we do? We give him a minute, then we start figuring out what comes next. But before Lena could move, Emma was running toward her father, her boots kicking up ash, her small body throwing itself at him. Papa, don't cry. Please don't cry. Cole caught her, pulled her tight against his chest. Thomas broke away from Lena and ran too, and then Cole had both his children in his arms, all 3 of them crying in the ruins of the barn. Lena stayed back, giving them space, her own throat tight. After a long moment, Cole looked up at her. Come here. You need time with your kids. Lena, come here. She walked over. Cole reached out and pulled her down to kneel with them, his arm around her shoulders. The children pressed between them. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so damn sorry. For what? For all of it. For being too stubborn to see what you were doing for us. For pushing you away. For almost losing you today because I was too scared to... His voice cracked. Sarah would have hated what I became. She would have hated how I let grief turn me into someone who couldn't even look at his own children without feeling like I was drowning. Papa, Emma started. No, let me say this. Both of you need to hear it. Cole looked at his children. Your mother was the strongest, bravest, most loving person I ever knew. And when she died, I thought the only way to honor her was to lock everything away. All the feelings, all the memories, all the love. Because if I let myself feel it, I'd have to accept she was really gone. But I was wrong. Tears cut tracks through the soot on his face. I was so wrong. Because you two needed me, and I wasn't there. I was breathing and working and existing, but I wasn't your father. Not really. Not the way she would have wanted. We missed you, Emma whispered. We missed Mama, but we missed you too, even though you were right there. Cole made a sound like something breaking. I know, baby. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Thomas pressed his face against his father's chest. Are you going to leave again, even though you're here? No. Cole's voice was firm. No, son. I'm done hiding. I'm done running from the people who need me. From this day forward, I'm here. Really here. I promise. They sat in the ash and the ruin, holding each other. And for the first time since Lena had arrived at this broken ranch, it felt like maybe something was being built instead of just maintained. Eventually, they had to move. The sun was setting, and they needed to assess the damage, figure out shelter for the night, make plans. The house was in rough shape. The windows were cracked, the porch was scorched, and the whole structure groaned when they walked inside. But it was standing. Lena checked the kitchen. The stove was intact, the pump still worked. They had water, they had shelter. It was more than many would have after a fire like that. Cole walked through the rooms like a man cataloging his own grave. He stopped in the front room, staring at Sarah's quilt on the couch, untouched by the fire, somehow, even though soot covered everything else. "We took it," Emma said quietly. "Miss Lena made sure we took Mama's quilt and her letters and Thomas's rabbit." Cole looked at Lena. "You saved her things." "I saved what mattered to the kids. The rest is just wood and nails." The barn had her tools in it, her workbench, the saddles she made herself. "I know. I'm sorry." Cole shook his head. "Don't be. Those were things. The quilt, the letters, those are her. Those are what the kids will hold on to when they're grown. You knew that. You saved what mattered." He walked to the window, looking out at the devastated land. "I built that barn with my own hands. It took me 3 years. I was so proud of it. And when Sarah died, it became my hiding place. I could go out there and pretend I was working when really I was just avoiding everything inside this house that reminded me of her." "It was a good barn," Lena said. "It was a cage." He turned to face her. "And watching it burn, I thought I'd feel like I lost her all over again, but I didn't. I felt free. Like maybe I'd been given permission to finally let go of the ghost and hold on to the person." Emma and Thomas had crept close, listening. "I loved your mother more than anything in this world," Cole told them. "I still do. I always will. But she's not here anymore, and I am, and so are you, and that has to mean something. We have to mean something." "We do, Papa," Emma said. "We mean everything." Cole pulled them close again, and this time when he held them, it looked different. Not desperate, not drowning, just a father holding his children. That night they ate a cold meal of bread and cheese, all that had survived the fire, and slept in the front room together because none of them wanted to be alone. Lena made pallets on the floor, and they lay in the dark listening to the settling sounds of a house that had survived the unsurvivable. "Miss Lena?" Thomas's voice came through the darkness. "Yeah, buddy?" "When the fire came, were you scared?" "Terrified." "But you didn't run away." "No, I didn't." "Why not?" Lena thought about it. "Because running wouldn't have saved you, and I'd rather die trying to keep you safe than live knowing I didn't try at all." Silence. Then Emma's voice. "Mama would have liked you." Lena's eyes burned. "You think so?" "I know so. She used to say the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who get back up even when they don't want to. Your mama sounds like she was pretty smart." "She was." Emma's voice got thick. "I still miss her all the time." "Me too," Thomas whispered. Cole's voice came from across the room. "Me too. Every single day, but I think—" He paused. "I think she'd want us to keep living. Really living. Not just surviving. And I think she'd be glad you two had someone like Lena to show us how." Lena didn't say anything. Couldn't say anything. She just lay in the dark and listened to this family breathe, and thought about how strange it was that sometimes you had to lose everything to figure out what actually mattered. The next morning brought a grim accounting. The barn was a total loss. 2 of the 3 outbuildings were gone. The corrals would need to be rebuilt from scratch. The garden was ash. The chickens had either burned or fled. Of the horses, only Cole's had survived. The ones Lena had released had scattered, and there was no telling if they'd make it back. But they were alive. The house stood, and as the sun rose over the scorched land, other ranchers started arriving to help. Men and women Lena had never met rode in with wagons full of supplies, tools, offers of labor. The same people who'd gossiped about the propriety of a housekeeper in a widower's home showed up ready to work. Margaret Holloway arrived mid-morning with 2 of her sons in a wagon loaded with lumber. Cole met her in the yard, his face neutral. "Margaret." "Cole." She climbed down from the wagon. "Heard you took a hit." "Lost the barn. Most of the outbuildings." She nodded, surveying the damage. Then her eyes landed on Lena, standing on the porch with the children. Something flickered across her face. "That woman still here?" "Her name is Lena, and yes, she saved my children's lives yesterday." Margaret's eyebrows rose. "Did she now?" "She got them to the creek when the fire jumped the break, sheltered them in the water while it passed. If she hadn't—" Cole's voice went rough. They'd be dead, and I'd be burying them today instead of rebuilding. Margaret studied Lena with new eyes. Then she looked back at Cole. That true? Every word. Huh. Margaret walked toward the porch. She stopped at the bottom step, looking up at Lena. You got sense enough to save children from a wildfire? You got sense enough to ignore what small minds say about you. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I generally ignore small minds anyway, Lena said. Saves time. Margaret's mouth twitched, almost a smile. I expect we'll get along fine then. My boys are here to help with the barn. You need anything else, you let me know. She turned and started barking orders at her sons before Lena could respond. The rebuilding started that day. It was hard, brutal work, clearing the burned debris, salvaging what little could be saved, laying new foundations. But people showed up. Families who'd lost their own buildings in the fire came anyway, because that's what you did out here. You helped. You survived together. You buried your differences in the face of something bigger. Lena worked alongside everyone else, hammering nails, hauling lumber, her hands blistering and her back screaming. Emma and Thomas helped too, fetching water, carrying tools, being useful in the ways children could be. And Cole worked harder than anyone. Like he was trying to rebuild more than just a barn. Like he was trying to rebuild himself. 3 days in, he found Lena taking a break in the shade of the house. You should rest more, he said. You're not used to this kind of labor. I've done worse. He sat down beside her, wiping sweat from his face. I need to tell you something. Lena's stomach tightened. Okay. When I rode out looking for you after the fire, I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought I was going to find bodies. I thought I was going to lose my children the same way I lost Sarah. Sudden. Brutal. No time to say goodbye. But you didn't. Because of you. Because you were brave enough and smart enough to do what needed doing. He turned to look at her. You could have run. When the fire came, you could have saved yourself and left them. No one would have blamed you. I would have. I know, that's the difference. He reached out and took her hand. I don't know how to thank you for that, for giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. Lena's throat tightened. You're a good man, Cole Rourke. You just forgot for a while. Maybe, but you reminded me. You and the kids. He squeezed her hand. When we get the barn rebuilt, I want to talk about making this permanent. I already have the job. I don't mean the job. I mean, he stopped, seemed to gather courage. I mean, making you part of this family. Really part of it. Not just the housekeeper, but someone who belongs here. Someone who has a stake in this place. Lena's heart kicked hard against her ribs. Cole, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Because I've spent 2 years locked in grief, and you walked in here and kicked the door down. And my children smile again. And I remember what it feels like to want to wake up in the morning. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Before Lena could respond, Emma came running around the corner. Papa, Mr. Henderson says the frame is ready. Cole stood, offering Lena a hand up. We'll talk later. But as they walked back to the work site, Lena's mind was spinning, making her part of the family. What did that mean? Adoption? Partnership? Something else? And more importantly, did she want it? She'd come here with nothing, expecting nothing, planning to work and move on like she always did. But somewhere between the first meal she'd cooked and the moment she'd pulled those children into the creek, something had shifted. She'd stopped seeing this as just a job and started seeing it as something bigger. A home. Maybe. Possibly. If she was brave enough to reach for it. The barn went up faster than it had any right to. Within a week, they had walls. Within 2, they had a roof. It wasn't the barn Cole had built with his own hands over 3 years. It was rougher, simpler, but it was solid. And it was built by a community that had decided Cole Rourke and his family were worth saving. On the day they hung the doors, Margaret Holloway brought a basket of food and a bottle of whiskey. For the barn raising, she said, handing it to Cole. Though it's mostly raised already, Cole accepted it with something like a smile. Never too late to celebrate. That night, they gathered in the yard. The Rourkes, Lena, Margaret and her family, the Hendersons, the Pratts, and half a dozen other families who'd helped with the rebuilding. Someone brought a fiddle. Someone else brought more whiskey. The children ran wild while the adults talked and laughed and tried to forget, for one night, just how close they'd all come to losing everything. Lena stood at the edge of the gathering, watching Emma dance with Margaret Holloway's daughter, watching Thomas chase fireflies with the Henderson boys, watching Cole talk with his neighbors like a man who'd rejoined the world. "You did this," Margaret said, appearing beside her. "I didn't do anything." "Don't be modest. It's irritating." Margaret took a sip from her glass. "Cole Rourke's been dead behind the eyes for 2 years. Everyone knew it. We tried to help, but he wouldn't let us. Then you showed up and kicked him back to life." "I think the fire did most of that. The fire woke him up. But you're the reason he had something to wake up for." Margaret looked at her. "Those kids love you. Anyone with eyes can see it." Lena's chest tightened. "They're good kids." "They are. And they need someone like you. Someone strong enough to stand up to their father when he's being an idiot. Someone who'll run into fire for them." Margaret's voice softened. "Don't run from this, girl. I know your type. I was your type once, convinced I didn't deserve good things, convinced I had to keep moving or I'd disappear. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop running and let yourself be found." Before Lena could respond, Cole was there, offering his hand. "Dance with me." "I don't dance." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out." She let him pull her into the makeshift dance floor, where couples were swaying to the fiddle's tune. Cole's hand settled on her waist. Lena's went to his shoulder. They moved awkwardly, out of rhythm, stepping on each other's feet. "This is terrible," Lena said. "Worst dancing I've ever seen," Cole agreed, but neither of them stopped. "I've been thinking about what you said," Lena told him, "about making this permanent." "And?" "I don't know how to do this. Family, belonging. I've spent so long running that I don't know how to stand still." Cole pulled her slightly closer. "Then we learn together. Because I don't know how to do it either. Not anymore. But I want to try. And I think you do too." Lena looked up at him, this hard, broken man who'd somehow found his way back to himself. "What if I mess it up?" "You won't. You don't know that. I know you ran into fire for my children. I know you stood up to me when I was being a stubborn ass. I know you brought life back to a house that was dying. That's enough." His voice dropped. "You're enough, Lena Hart, just as you are." Something cracked open in Lena's chest, something she'd kept locked down for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? Okay. I'll stay, really stay. Not just until something better comes along. I'll stay and we'll figure this out and I'll probably screw it up sometimes, but..." Cole kissed her. Right there in front of everyone, with the fiddle playing and the children watching and Margaret Holloway smirking into her whiskey. When he pulled back, Lena was breathless. "Was that appropriate?" she asked. "Probably not. Don't care." Lena laughed, really laughed, for the first time in longer than she could remember. "Fair enough." They danced until the fire burned low and the children fell asleep on blankets in the grass. They danced until the neighbors packed up and headed home. They danced until it was just the two of them under a sky full of stars, moving to music only they could hear. And when Cole finally led her back to the house, with Emma sleeping on his shoulder and Thomas clutching Lena's hand, it felt like coming home. Not to a place, but to people. To a family that had been broken and was slowly, painfully, beautifully learning how to be whole again. The morning after the barn raising, Lena woke to find Emma sitting on the edge of her bed, watching her with those two serious eyes. "You kissed Papa." Lena sat up, pushing hair out of her face. "I did. Well, he kissed me. But yes." "Does that mean you're staying forever?" "Forever. Such a big word for a 10-year-old to carry." "It means I'm staying as long as you'll have me." Emma's face scrunched up. "That's not a real answer." "No, I suppose it's not." Lena patted the bed beside her. Emma climbed up, pulling her knees to her chest. "The truth is, I don't know what forever looks like yet, but I know I'm not going anywhere today, or tomorrow, or the day after that. What if Papa gets sad again? What if he goes back to how he was? Then we'll deal with it, together. What if people talk mean about you again? What if Mrs. Holloway changes her mind?" Lena took Emma's hand. "Baby, people are always going to talk. That's what people do. But we don't live our lives based on what other folks think. We live based on what's right for us. Emma was quiet for a moment. Mama used to say something like that. She said, people who mind don't matter, and people who matter don't mind. Your mama was a smart woman. Do you think she'd be mad that Papa kissed you? The question hit Lena square in the chest. I think your mama would want your papa to be happy, and she'd want you and Thomas to have someone who loves you. If that's me, then no. I don't think she'd be mad. I asked Papa once if he'd ever get married again. This was right after Mama died. He said no. He said there was only one Sarah, and he'd never dishonor her memory by replacing her. Lena's throat tightened. I'm not trying to replace your mother, Emma. Nobody could do that. I know. That's why I think it's okay. Emma looked up at her. You're not trying to be Mama. You're just trying to be Lena. And I think that's what we need. The simple wisdom of it nearly broke Lena. She pulled Emma into a hug, holding her tight. You're a pretty remarkable kid, you know that? Thomas says I'm bossy. You can be both. They went downstairs to find Cole already in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. He'd burned the bacon and the eggs looked like rubber, but he was trying. Morning, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. I thought I'd give you a break from cooking. That's sweet, but maybe let me salvage this before someone gets food poisoning. Cole stepped aside, letting Lena take over. Emma set the table. Thomas came down with his rabbit, who'd apparently survived the fire with nothing but a few singed whiskers and had become his constant companion. They ate together, and for the first time it didn't feel like four separate people occupying the same space. It felt like a family. Messy and imperfect, but real. After breakfast, Cole pushed his plate away and looked at the children. I need to talk to you two about something. Emma and Thomas exchanged glances. What? I've been thinking about your mother, about how I've handled things since she died. He took a breath. I know I haven't talked about her much. I know I shut down whenever you mentioned her name, and I'm sorry for that. I thought I was protecting you from pain, but really I was just protecting myself. It's okay, Papa, Emma started. No, it's not. Let me finish. Cole's hands gripped the edge of the table. Your mother was the best thing that ever happened to me. She was fierce and strong, and she never let me get away with being less than I could be. When she died, I thought the world ended. And in a way, it did. My world ended. But yours kept going. You two were still here, still growing, still needing a father. And I failed you. Thomas's eyes were shiny. You didn't fail us. I did. I was here in body, but not in spirit. I fed you and clothed you, but I didn't see you. I didn't hear you. I was so wrapped up in my own grief that I forgot you were grieving too. His voice cracked. I forgot you lost your mother, and I made you lose your father at the same time. Emma started crying. We just wanted you to be okay. I know you did. And that's the worst part. You two were trying to take care of me when I should have been taking care of you. Cole reached across the table and took their hands. But that changes now, starting today. I want to talk about your mother. I want to remember her, not in a way that hurts, but in a way that honors her, because she was worth remembering, and you deserve to keep her alive in your hearts without being scared it'll break mine. Really? Thomas whispered. Really. So if you want to tell me stories about her, I'll listen. If you want to cry because you miss her, I'll hold you. If you want to laugh about the funny things she used to do, we'll laugh together. He looked at each of them. She's not here anymore, but she's still part of us. And pretending she's not doesn't honor her. It just makes us all lonely. Emma launched herself out of her chair and into her father's arms. Thomas followed. Cole held them both, and this time when he cried, it wasn't the desperate, drowning tears of a man who'd lost everything. It was the cleansing grief of a man who'd finally given himself permission to feel. Lena started to stand to give them privacy, but Cole reached out and caught her wrist. Stay, please. So she stayed, and when Cole pulled her into the embrace with the children, she let herself be pulled. Let herself be part of this moment, this healing. Later that morning, Cole found Lena in the garden plot behind the house. She was turning over soil, preparing to replant what the fire had destroyed. Need help? He asked. You've got ranch work to do. It can wait. He grabbed a shovel and started working beside her. They dug in silence for a while before he spoke again. I meant what I said last night about making this permanent. I know. But I should probably clarify what I meant. Lena stopped digging. Okay. Cole leaned on his shovel, looking at her straight on. I'm not good with words. Sarah was the one who could talk circles around anyone. But I need you to understand something. When I asked you to be part of this family, I wasn't asking you to be the housekeeper who stays long term. I was asking if you'd consider being my wife. Lena's heart kicked. Cole, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But out here, time moves different. You learn who people are when things get hard, not when they're easy. And I've seen who you are. I've seen your strength, your courage, your heart. And I want that in my life, not just as help, but as a partner. We kissed once, Lena said. One time. I know. And I'm not saying we have to get married tomorrow. I'm saying I want to court you proper. I want to give this a real chance. And if it works, if we work, then maybe down the line we can talk about making it official. Lena searched his face. What if it doesn't work? What if we try and realize we're not suited? Then at least we tried. At least we didn't let fear make our decisions for us. The children already love you. They've made that clear. That's not the same as having me as a stepmother. No, it's not. But Emma asked me this morning if I was going to marry you. And when I said I wanted to, she smiled bigger than I've seen since Sarah died. Cole stepped closer. I'm not asking you to replace her. I'm asking you to build something new with us. Something that's ours. Lena's hands were shaking. I don't know how to be a wife or a mother. I failed at it once and lost everything. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not. But it still happened. And I'm terrified of carrying that much again and having it ripped away. Cole reached out and took her dirty, trembling hands in his. I can't promise you nothing bad will ever happen. Life out here is hard and uncertain. But I can promise you won't face it alone. And I can promise I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of the chance you're giving us. Lena looked at this man, this hard, broken, healing man, and felt something shift inside her. A wall coming down. A door opening. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, we can try. We can court properly and see where it goes. But Cole, if this doesn't work, if we realize we're making a mistake, we'll handle it like adults. No one gets hurt more than necessary. Deal? Deal. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Really smiling. It transformed his whole face. I'm going to be terrible at this, he said. Me too. Good. We'll be terrible together. Word spread through the territory faster than the wildfire had. Cole Rourke was courting his housekeeper. The reactions were mixed. Some folks, like Margaret Holloway, approved. They'd seen how Lena had changed the Rourke household, seen the children thriving, seen Cole rejoin the world of the living. They figured anyone who could survive a wildfire and come out smiling deserved a chance at happiness. Others weren't so kind. 3 weeks after Cole made his intentions clear, Lena went to the general store in town to pick up supplies. The moment she walked in, the conversation died. 5 women who'd been chatting by the fabric counter suddenly found intense interest in the floorboards. Lena ignored them and went about her shopping. She was loading flour into her basket when one of them, a thin woman with a pinched face named Constance Webb, spoke up. Awful convenient, isn't it? Lena didn't turn around. What's that? You showing up right when Cole Rourke needed help, and now look at you, about to marry into one of the biggest ranches in the territory. I'm not marrying anyone yet. But you will, everyone knows it. You've got your hooks in good and deep. Lena set down her basket very carefully. Then she turned to face the women. You've got something to say to me, Mrs. Webb. Say it plain. Constance's face flushed. I'm just saying it looks suspicious. A woman with no past, no references, no family, just happens to land in a widower's house, and 3 months later she's playing wife and mother. Playing, Lena repeated. That's what you think I'm doing? What else would you call it? You're not Sarah Rourke. You never will be. You're right. I'm not Sarah. I'm Lena, and I'm not trying to replace her. I'm trying to help her family survive. Lena's voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. You want to know my past? Fine. I had a husband and a daughter. They died in a fire while I was away working. I spent 2 years drinking myself into oblivion because I couldn't face a world without them. Then I spent another year taking whatever work I could find just to eat. That's my past. Not pretty, not convenient, but it's mine. The store had gone dead silent. Even the shopkeeper had stopped pretending to work. And you know what I learned in all that time? Lena continued. That the people who talk the most about propriety and morals are usually the ones who've never had to make a hard choice in their lives. You want to judge me for taking a job and doing it well? Go ahead. You want to criticize Cole for finding some happiness after 2 years of grief? Be my guest, but do it to my face instead of whispering behind my back. Constance's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have shopping to finish. Lena turned back to her basket. One of the other women, younger, with kinder eyes, stepped forward. I think you're good for the Rourke family. I've seen those children in town. They look healthier than they have in years. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm just saying what I see. The woman glanced at Constance. Some people forget that judging others doesn't make them righteous. It just makes them mean. Lena finished her shopping in tense silence and loaded the supplies into the wagon. She was climbing up onto the seat when Cole appeared, leading his horse. Heard there was some excitement in the store. News travels fast. In a town this small? Always. He tied his horse to the back of the wagon and climbed up beside her. You all right? Fine, just some folks with opinions. Constance Webb? How'd you know? Because she's had opinions about everyone in this territory since before I was born. Don't let her get to you. Lena picked up the reins. She said I was playing at being wife and mother, that I'd never be Sarah. Cole's jaw tightened. She had no right. She wasn't wrong, though. I'm not Sarah. I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe I am fooling myself, thinking I can step into her life and make it work. Hey. Cole took the reins from her hands and set them down. Look at me. Lena turned. You're not stepping into Sarah's life. You're building a new one. With us. Yes, Sarah was my wife. Yes, she was the children's mother. But she's gone, and we're still here, and we have to figure out how to live with that. His voice was fierce. You're not a replacement. You're something entirely your own, and anyone who can't see that doesn't matter. Your children matter, and they adore you. Emma talks about you constantly. Thomas told me yesterday that having you here makes the house feel warm again. Their words, not mine. Lena's eyes burned. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it, together. He took her hand. But Lena, you saved my family. You walked into a dying house and brought it back to life. That's not playing. That's real. And I'll stand in front of anyone in this territory and tell them that. You don't have to defend me. Yes, I do, because you're mine now, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have bothered her, but coming from Cole with his history of losing people, it just felt like safety. Take me home, she said. Yes, ma'am. That Sunday, Cole did something he hadn't done in 2 years. He took his family to church. The small chapel was already full when they arrived. Heads turned, whispers started. Cole walked down the aisle with his head high, Emma on one side, Thomas on the other, and Lena right beside him. They sat in the Rourke family pew, the same one Sarah had insisted on claiming when they were first married. Cole settled in like he owned it, which, in a way, he did. The preacher looked surprised, but pleased. Good to see you, Cole. Children. Reverend, the service was standard frontier fare, hymns sung off-key, a sermon about perseverance, prayers for rain and good crops. But halfway through, the preacher did something unexpected. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the Rourke family, he said. Many of you know they suffered great loss in the recent fire. Lost their barn, their outbuildings, much of their stock, but by the grace of community and hard work, they're rebuilding, and I think that's something we should all celebrate. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the congregation. I'd also like to acknowledge Miss Lena Hart, who's been caring for the Rourke household these past months. I understand she showed tremendous courage during the fire, saving young Emma and Thomas when things looked darkest. The preacher looked directly at Lena. We're grateful for your service to this family and this community. It wasn't quite a blessing, but it was close enough. After the service, people approached cautiously. Some offered congratulations on the barn. Others asked about the children. A few, a very few, made a point of introducing themselves to Lena and welcoming her. Margaret Holloway appeared with her usual bluntness. "About time you brought this family to church, Cole Rourke." "I'm aware." "And about time you claimed this woman publicly instead of hiding her away like you're ashamed." "I'm not ashamed?" "Good. Because if you were, I'd have to knock some sense into that thick head of yours." Margaret turned to Lena. "You did well in the store the other day. Constance Webb needed someone to stand up to her. Been running her mouth unchecked for too long. I probably shouldn't have lost my temper." "Nonsense. Sometimes losing your temper is exactly what's called for." Margaret smiled. "You'll fit in fine here, girl. Just keep being yourself." On the ride home, Emma chattered excitedly about seeing her friends at church, about the Reverend mentioning their family, about how everyone had been nice to Lena. "Did you see Mrs. Peterson's face?" she said. "She looked like she swallowed a lemon when the preacher called Miss Lena brave." "Emma, that's not kind," Cole said, but there was laughter in his voice. "It's true, though." That night, after the children were asleep, Cole and Lena sat on the porch. The new barn stood dark against the stars, a monument to survival and community. "Thank you," Cole said, "for coming to church. I know that wasn't easy. It wasn't so bad. Yes, it was. I saw the looks, heard the whispers, but you held your head high and you showed them you belong." "Do I, though, belong?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "Sarah used to say that belonging isn't about where you come from. It's about where you choose to stay, and you chose to stay here, through gossip and fire and all the hard things. That makes you belong more than half the people in that church who were born here." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm scared, Cole." "Of what?" "Of this working, of being happy, of having something good and then losing it again." "I'm scared too, every damn day." His arm came around her. "But I'm more scared of not trying, of looking back in 10 years and regretting that I let fear make my choices." "When did you get wise?" "When I almost lost everything and realized what actually mattered." They sat in comfortable silence until the cold drove them inside. Cole walked Lena to her room. They'd agreed to do things properly, which meant separate beds until they were married, but he stopped at her door. "I know we're taking this slow," he said, "but I need you to know something." "What's that?" "I'm all in. Whatever this is, wherever it goes, I'm committed, and when the time's right, when you're ready, I'm going to ask you properly, with a ring and everything." Lena's breath caught. "Cole, you don't have to say anything now. I just needed you to know so you're not wondering where this is headed." He kissed her forehead and walked away, leaving Lena standing in the doorway with her heart hammering and tears on her cheeks. The next few weeks developed a rhythm. Cole worked the ranch with a renewed purpose. The children helped Lena with the house and garden. In the evenings, they'd all sit together in the front room, Cole reading reports, Emma sewing, Thomas playing with his rabbit, Lena mending clothes or planning meals. It was domestic and ordinary and achingly sweet. One evening, Emma looked up from her sewing. "Miss Lena?" "Hmm?" "If you marry Papa, should we call you Ma?" The room went silent. Cole's head snapped up. Thomas froze. Lena set down her mending. "Do you want to call me Ma?" Emma's face scrunched up. "I don't know. Mama will always be Mama, but you're not just Miss Lena anymore either. You're more than that." "Then maybe we figure out something that's just ours, something that honors your mama, but also recognizes what we're building." "Like what?" "I don't know. What feels right to you?" Emma thought about it. "Could we just call you Lena? Not Miss Lena, just Lena. Like family." "I'd like that." Thomas nodded. "Me too. Because you're not our mama. But you're not our mama either. You're just Lena. Our Lena." Cole's eyes were suspiciously shiny. "Our Lena. I like the sound of that." That night marked another shift. The children started calling her Lena without the formality, started including her in their memories of Sarah without fear, started treating her not like a replacement mother, but like someone who'd carved out her own space in their hearts. And Lena, who'd spent so long believing she didn't deserve a second chance at family, started to believe maybe she did. 2 months after the fire, Cole took Lena riding out to the eastern pasture. They rode in easy silence until they reached a spot where the land rolled away in all directions, endless and beautiful. Cole dismounted and helped Lena down. Then he stood there, looking out at his land. "Sarah and I used to come here," he said, "when things got hard or we needed to think." She said it put everything in perspective. All the petty problems seemed smaller when you could see how big the world was. It's beautiful. She's buried about a mile north of here, on a hill overlooking the ranch. She wanted to be able to see it even after she was gone. Cole's voice was steady. "I haven't been back since the funeral. Couldn't bear it." "You don't have to explain." "I want to, though. I want you to understand." He turned to face her. "I loved Sarah with everything I had. She was my partner, my best friend, my whole world. And when she died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. Thought I'd just exist until I could join her." "Cole, but then you came and you didn't try to replace her. You didn't try to make me forget her. You just existed alongside her memory and made space for something new. And that's when I realized loving you doesn't diminish what I had with Sarah. It just means my heart's bigger than I thought." Lena's throat closed up. "I'm going to visit her grave tomorrow. Take the children. Tell her about you, about what's happening. And I wanted you to know because I want everything out in the open. No secrets, no ghosts." "What will you tell her?" Cole smiled. That I found someone who saved our family when I couldn't. Someone who loves our children and takes no nonsense from me. Someone she would have liked." He reached for Lena's hands. "And that I'm going to marry her, if she'll have me." "That's not a very romantic proposal." "Good thing it's not the real one yet." He pulled her close. "But it's coming, Lena Hart. Soon as I can get a proper ring made, so be ready." She kissed him instead of answering, kissed him like he was air and she'd been drowning. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I'll take that as a yes. Don't get ahead of yourself." Too late. They rode back to the ranch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The morning Cole took the children to Sarah's grave, Lena stayed behind. It wasn't her place to go, not yet. Some conversations needed to happen without an audience, even a well-meaning one. She spent the time working in the garden, turning soil and planting seeds for vegetables that wouldn't be ready until late summer. Planning for a future she was finally allowing herself to believe in. They came back quieter than they'd left, but not sad. Emma's eyes were red but clear. Thomas held his father's hand like he'd never let go. Cole found Lena in the kitchen, kneading bread dough. He didn't say anything, just wrapped his arms around her from behind and held on. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Hard, good, necessary." He pressed his face into her hair. Emma cried. Thomas asked questions. I told them stories about their mother, good ones, funny ones. Things I should have been telling them all along. "And Sarah?" "I told her about you, about how you saved them, saved all of us, really. Told her I was going to marry you and I hoped she'd approve." His voice went rough. "And I swear to you, Lena, the wind picked up right then, just for a moment." Like she was answering. Lena turned in his arms. "You think she approved?" "I think she wanted us to be happy. And I think she knows you'll take care of her babies." He kissed her forehead. "The children want to take you there sometime. Show you where she rests, if you're willing. I'd be honored." That evening, after supper, Cole disappeared into the barn and came back with something wrapped in cloth. He set it on the table in front of Lena. "What's this?" "Open it." She unwrapped the cloth to find a simple wooden box, beautifully carved with a pattern of wildflowers. Inside, nestled on velvet, was a ring. It wasn't fancy. The band was silver, hammered by hand, with a small blue stone set in the center. But it was clearly made with care. "I had it commissioned from the silversmith in town," Cole said. "The stone's a sapphire. Sarah's favorite color was blue. I wanted her to be part of this somehow." "Is that strange?" Lena's vision blurred. "No, it's perfect." Cole dropped to one knee right there in the kitchen, with flowers still dusting the table and dishes piled in the sink and Emma and Thomas peeking around the doorway, trying to be subtle. "Lena Hart, I'm not good with fancy words, but I know you're the bravest, strongest, most stubborn woman I've ever met. You walked into our broken family and put us back together. You loved my children when I'd forgotten how. You reminded me what it means to be alive instead of just breathing. His hands were shaking. I don't deserve you, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Lena looked at this man who'd come so far from the hollow ghost she'd met 6 months ago. Looked at the children in the doorway, their faces bright with hope. Looked at the ring with the blue stone that honored a woman she'd never met, but owed everything to. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Cole surged to his feet and kissed her so hard he knocked over a chair. Emma and Thomas came running, cheering and dancing around them. Cole tried to put the ring on Lena's finger, fumbled it, tried again, finally got it on the third attempt. It fits, he said, sounding surprised. Did you think it wouldn't? I had to guess your size. Asked Margaret Holloway's opinion, and she said you had working hands, so probably a bit bigger than delicate. Lena laughed through her tears. That sounds like Margaret. Emma grabbed Lena's hand to inspect the ring. It's beautiful. The blue matches your eyes. Does it? Mama used to say people should wear colors that match their soul. Blue is loyalty and strength. That's you. Thomas tugged on Cole's sleeve. Does this mean Lena's going to be our mama now? Cole crouched down. Not your mama, son. You've only got one of those, but she'll be my wife and your stepmother, which means she's family. Really, truly family. Forever. Forever's a long time, Thomas said seriously. Yes, it is, and I plan to spend all of it right here with you. They celebrated that night with a cake Lena had made earlier in the week, saving it for an occasion. Emma declared it needed to be tradition, cake for every important moment. Thomas wanted to know if they could get a dog now that they were officially becoming a family. Cole just sat at the head of the table and smiled like a man who'd forgotten how and was relearning. Planning the wedding turned out to be more complicated than any of them expected. Not because of the ceremony itself, frontier weddings were simple affairs, but because of the questions it raised about how to honor the past while building the future. I don't want a big fancy thing, Lena said one evening. Just family and close friends. We could do it here on the ranch, Emma suggested. Mama and Papa got married under the big cottonwood by the creek. The suggestion hung in the air. Cole looked at Lena. What do you think? He asked. I think if that's where you married Sarah, it might be perfect, Cole interrupted. Sarah loved that tree. She'd want it to see more happiness, and Emma's right, keeping it on the ranch feels right. So they set a date for late September, when the worst of the summer heat would be past, but before the autumn rains came. Margaret Holloway insisted on helping with the food. The Reverend agreed to perform the ceremony. Neighbors offered to bring chairs and help set up. But 3 weeks before the wedding, trouble came calling. Lena was in town picking up fabric for her wedding dress when she overheard 2 men talking outside the feed store. Heard Cole Rourke's marrying that woman who showed up out of nowhere. Shame, really. Sarah's barely cold in the ground, and he's replacing her. 2 years ain't exactly fresh, Tom. Still. And with someone like that, no family, no history, could be anyone. Could be running from the law for all we know. Lena's hands clenched on her basket. She should have walked away, should have ignored them like she'd ignored Constance Webb and all the other small-minded gossips. But something about hearing Cole's decision questioned, about having her past weaponized, made her snap. She walked up to them. You've got something to say about me. Say it to my face. The 2 men turned, startled. The one called Tom had the decency to look embarrassed. The other, a thick-necked rancher named Bill Hutchins, just scowled. We were having a private conversation, Hutchins said. Private conversations don't happen on public streets at full volume. Lena's voice was ice. You want to know my history? I'll tell you. I was married to a miner in Colorado, had a baby girl named Rose. They died in a boarding house fire while I was working. I spent 2 years drowning in whiskey and guilt. Then I came here looking for work and found a family that needed me as much as I needed them. That's my history. Not exciting, not criminal, just sad and ordinary. Tom looked uncomfortable. We didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant to question whether I'm good enough for Cole Rourke, whether I deserve to marry him, whether some woman with no pedigree should be raising Sarah Rourke's children. Lena's voice shook with anger. Well, here's the truth. I'll never be Sarah. I'm not trying to be, but I love those children, like they're my own. I love their father. And I've earned my place in that family through hard work and sacrifice and almost dying in a wildfire. So you can take your opinions and… Miss Hart, Lena spun around. The Reverend stood there, looking stern. Reverend, I heard what you were doing, and while I appreciate your passion, perhaps this conversation should happen elsewhere. Lena's face burned. Yes, sir. The Reverend turned to Hutchins and Tom. As for you two, I'll remind you that bearing false witness and spreading malicious gossip are sins. If you've got concerns about the Rourke family, bring them to me in private. Don't air them in the street like common troublemakers. Hutchins bristled. We've got a right to our opinions. You do. But you don't have a right to harass a woman going about her business. The Reverend's voice was firm. Now move along before I decide this is something that needs to be addressed from the pulpit on Sunday. The two men left, muttering. The Reverend turned to Lena. Walk with me. They walked in silence for a block before he spoke. You're going to face more of that. You know that, don't you? I know. Frontier communities are slow to accept outsiders, especially when those outsiders disrupt the established order. I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I'm just trying to live my life. And that's exactly what disrupts things. You're a woman who doesn't fit the mold. You speak your mind, you work hard. You don't apologize for existing. That threatens people who've built their identity on being proper and conventional. Lena stopped walking. Are you saying I should change? Absolutely not. I'm saying you should prepare for the fight. Because marrying Cole Rourke means taking on not just his family, but his standing in this community. And some folks won't like it. Will you still perform the ceremony? The Reverend smiled. Miss Hart, I've watched Cole Rourke come back from the dead these past months. I've seen his children laugh again. I've seen his children laugh again. I've seen him attend church and engage with his neighbors and actually live instead of just existing. And I know that's because of you. So yes, I'll perform the ceremony, gladly, and anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me. Lena's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to give you some advice, and you're not going to like it. What's that? When people attack you, don't attack back. It just gives them ammunition. Instead, live your life so well, so fully, so undeniably good that their criticisms look petty by comparison. That's harder than fighting. Yes, but it's also more effective, trust me. That night, Lena told Cole about the encounter. She expected him to be angry, to want to confront Hutchins and Tom, but he just pulled her close. I'm sorry you had to hear that. It's not your fault, isn't it? If I'd been stronger after Sarah died, if I'd kept the family together better, maybe people wouldn't question. Cole, stop. People are going to talk no matter what we do. The Reverend was right. We just have to live well enough that it doesn't matter. You sound like Sarah. She used to say the same thing. He kissed the top of her head. She also used to say that people who spend their time judging others are just avoiding looking at their own failures. Smart woman. The smartest. And she'd like you. I know she would. 2 weeks before the wedding, Margaret Holloway showed up with her daughters and a trunk full of fabric. We're making your dress, she announced. Don't argue. I wasn't going to argue. I don't know the first thing about making a wedding dress. Good. Then sit down and let us measure you. What followed was 3 days of organized chaos. Margaret directed her daughters like a general commanding troops. They measured and cut and sewed and argued about lace placement and hem length. Emma watched, fascinated, occasionally offering opinions that were surprisingly good. You've got an eye for this, Margaret told her. Your mama teach you. Emma nodded. She used to let me help with her sewing, said every woman should know how to make something beautiful. She was right. Margaret softened. Your mama was a good woman, Emma, and she'd be proud of you for welcoming Lena into your family. Do you really think so? I know so, because Sarah Rourke was practical above all else, and she'd want her children cared for by someone strong and capable, which Lena is. The dress came together beautifully, simple but elegant, with long sleeves and a high neck suitable for a frontier wedding. The fabric was cream-colored because Lena refused to wear white. I've been married before, she said. White feels dishonest. Cream it is, Margaret agreed, and we'll add blue ribbons for Sarah. On the day of the fitting, when Lena stood in front of the mirror wearing the finished dress, she barely recognized herself. She looked like a bride, like someone deserving of happiness. You're beautiful, Emma breathed. It's just the dress. No, it's you. You look happy.
And that was the thing, Lena realized. She was happy, really, truly happy.
For the first time since she'd lost her first family, she felt like she belonged somewhere, like she was building something that would last. The night before the wedding, Lena couldn't sleep. She got up and walked out to the porch, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the cool night air. She found Cole already there, staring up at the stars. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Too much thinking." He made room for her on the step. "You nervous?" "Terrified." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Cole spoke again. "I went to Sarah's grave this afternoon, alone. Wanted to talk to her one more time before tomorrow." "What did you say?" "That I loved her, that I'd always love her, but that I loved you too, and I didn't think those two things had to be in conflict." He took Lena's hand. "I told her I was scared of messing this up, of not being the husband you deserve because I'm still carrying her ghost around."
"What do you think she said?" Cole smiled. "I think she told me to stop being an idiot and just love you with everything I've got. That's what she would have said if she were here. I wish I could have known her." "I wish that too. I think you two would have been friends. You're both stubborn as hell and don't take any nonsense from anyone." Lena laughed. "That does sound like a solid foundation for friendship."
They sat until the cold drove them inside, and this time when Cole walked Lena to her door, he kissed her like it was the last night they'd spend apart. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow, you're mine. I'm already yours. Tomorrow just makes it official." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of September morning that felt like a gift. Lena woke to find Emma and Thomas sitting on her bed, watching her. "We wanted to give you something," Emma said. She held out a small package wrapped in cloth. Lena sat up and took it. Inside was a delicate handkerchief embroidered with wildflowers in blue thread. "Mama made it," Thomas said, "for her wedding. Emma found it in her things." "We want you to have it," Emma added, "for your wedding, so Mama can be there too." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure?" "We're sure. Mama would want you to have something beautiful. And we want you to know we're happy. About you marrying Papa. About you being our family." Lena pulled them both into a hug, careful not to cry on the handkerchief. "Thank you, both of you, for accepting me, for being brave enough to let someone new into your lives." "You're not someone new anymore," Thomas said. "You're just Lena, our Lena." There it was again, that phrase that had come to mean everything. Margaret arrived with her daughters to help Lena dress. They did her hair in a simple style, wove blue ribbons through the braids, and pinned Sarah's handkerchief inside her sleeve where she could feel it against her skin. When Lena looked in the mirror, she saw not just a bride, but a woman who'd survived everything the world had thrown at her and come out the other side ready to try again. The ceremony took place under the cottonwood tree by the creek, just as Cole and Sarah's had 20 years before. Chairs were arranged in rough rows. Neighbors filled them, dressed in their Sunday best. Margaret sat in the front row with her family. The Hendersons were there, and the Pratts, and even Constance Webb, looking sour but present. Emma and Thomas stood beside their father, both dressed in new clothes, both looking proud and nervous. The Reverend stood with his back to the creek, his Bible open in his hands, and Lena walked toward them alone because there was no one to give her away and she didn't need anyone to. She was choosing this, choosing Cole and the children and this hard, beautiful life. That choice was hers alone. Cole watched her approach with tears in his eyes. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You're stunning," he whispered. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The Reverend smiled. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Cole Rourke and Lena Hart. This is a sacred commitment, not to be entered into lightly, but with full knowledge of the responsibilities and joys it brings." He spoke about love and partnership, about building a life together, about honoring the past while embracing the future. Then he looked at Cole. "Cole, do you take Lena to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." Cole's voice was strong and clear. "Lena, do you take Cole to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, in good times and bad,
for as long as you both shall live? Lena looked at this man who'd found her when she had nothing left to lose, looked at his children who'd welcomed her into their hearts, looked at the community that had slowly, grudgingly accepted her as one of their own. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife.
Cole, you may kiss your bride. Cole pulled Lena close and kissed her while their friends and neighbors cheered. Emma and Thomas threw flower petals they'd collected that morning. Margaret Holloway dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Even Constance Webb managed something that might have been a smile. When they pulled apart, Cole rested his forehead against Lena's. "We did it," he said. "We really did it. We really did." The celebration that followed was everything a frontier wedding should be. Loud, joyful, and slightly chaotic. Tables were loaded with food. Someone produced a fiddle. Children ran wild while adults danced and talked and drank whiskey from unmarked bottles. At one point, Margaret pulled Lena aside. "You did good, girl. Better than I expected when I first saw you." "High praise coming from you." "I'm serious. You took a broken family and made them whole. That takes strength most people don't have." Margaret's voice softened. "Sarah would have approved. I knew her well enough to say that with confidence." "That means more than you know. Don't get sentimental on me. I've got a reputation to maintain." But Margaret hugged her anyway, fierce and quick. "Welcome to the territory, Lena Rourke. May you and that stubborn husband of yours have many years together." As the sun set and the party showed no signs of slowing, Cole found Lena standing at the edge of the gathering, watching everything with a small smile. "Happy?" he asked. "Overwhelmingly so." "Good, because I intend to keep you that way for the next 50 years. That's a long time." "Not nearly long enough." He pulled her into his arms, swaying to the distant music. "I love you, Lena Rourke." "I love you too, Cole Rourke." They danced as the stars came out, as the fire burned low, as their friends and family celebrated around them. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them was thinking about the past or worrying about the future. They were just present in this moment, grateful for second chances and new beginnings. The months that followed were an education in what building a real family looked like. It wasn't smooth. There were arguments about discipline and money and how to honor Sarah's memory without being trapped by it. There were moments when Lena felt like she was failing, when the children pushed back against her authority, when Cole retreated into old patterns of silence. But there were also breakfasts where everyone talked and laughed, evenings where they worked together on projects, Sundays at church where people greeted them as a unit. Small moments that added up to something bigger. Emma started teaching Lena the recipes Sarah had perfected, making them together in the kitchen while telling stories about her mother. Thomas began calling Lena Ma Lena. Not quite Mama, but close enough to matter. Cole learned to talk about his feelings instead of burying them, and Lena learned to accept help instead of carrying everything alone. They rebuilt the ranch, stronger than before, added on to the house, giving Emma and Thomas bigger rooms, planted an orchard that would take years to bear fruit but represented hope in the future, bought new stock, hired seasonal help, slowly became prosperous. And through it all, Sarah's memory remained, not as a ghost haunting them, but as a foundation they built upon. Her quilt stayed on the couch, her recipes lived in the kitchen, her children carried her strength and kindness forward into their own lives. One evening in early spring, almost a year after the wedding, the family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset. Emma sat on the steps sketching. Thomas played with a new litter of puppies. They'd finally gotten that dog he'd wanted. Cole and Lena sat together in the rocking chairs Sarah had commissioned when Emma was born. "I've been thinking," Emma said, without looking up from her drawing. "When I get married someday, I want to do it under the cottonwood tree, like you and Papa, and like Papa and Mama." "That's a good tradition," Lena said, "and I want my daughter to wear Mama's handkerchief, and yours. So she has both of you with her." Lena's throat tightened. "I'd be honored." Thomas looked up from the puppies. "Do you think Mama knows? That we're okay now?" Cole considered the question. "I think if there's anything after this life, she knows. And I think she's glad we found a way to keep living instead of just surviving." "I think she sent Lena to us," Emma said quietly. "I think she knew Papa couldn't do it alone and we needed someone strong, so she found the strongest person she could and sent her our way." It was a child's logic, beautiful in its simplicity.
Lena didn't necessarily believe in that kind of divine intervention, but she appreciated the sentiment. Whether she sent me or I just got lucky, Lena said, I'm grateful to be here. We're grateful too, Thomas said. Then with the brutal honesty of children, even though you make us eat vegetables. Everyone laughed. Lena pulled Thomas close and kissed the top of his head, especially because I make you eat vegetables. As darkness fell and the children went inside, Cole and Lena stayed on the porch. The land stretched away in all directions, theirs and not theirs, beautiful and harsh and unforgiving. No regrets? Cole asked. Not a single one. Even when I'm being stubborn? Especially then. Keeps life interesting. He took her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. I never thought I'd get this again. A partner, a family. A reason to wake up excited about the day ahead. Me neither. I thought I'd used up all my chances at happiness. Turns out we both had at least one more in us. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the children getting ready for bed, the horses settling in the barn, the wind moving through the grass. Thank you, Cole said finally, for taking a chance on us, for being brave enough to stay when things got hard, for loving my children, for loving me. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you for letting me, for seeing past my rough edges, for giving me a home. This was always your home. From the moment you walked through that door with nothing but a carpet bag and an attitude, this was your home. You just had to stay long enough to realize it. And that was the truth of it, Lena thought. Home wasn't a place you found. It was something you built piece by piece, day by day, with people who saw you at your worst and chose you anyway. It was messy and imperfect and required constant work, but it was worth every moment. Inside, Emma called out, "Oh, Lena, Thomas let the puppy on his bed again." "That's because he's supposed to be on the bed," Thomas yelled back. "Papa said no animals on the furniture." Cole sighed. "Guess we should—" "Yeah." Lena stood, pulling him up with her. "Welcome to family life." "Best decision I ever made," he said, and kissed her before they went inside to referee the puppy debate. The years that followed were full of the ordinary miracles that make up a life. Emma grew into a young woman with her mother's strength and her father's determination. Thomas became a skilled rancher, quiet and thoughtful, with a gift for understanding animals. The ranch prospered. The community, slowly but surely, accepted the Rourke's unconventional family as just another part of the territory's tapestry. Lena never forgot where she came from, the pain, the loss, the years of wandering, but she also never let it define where she was going. She'd learned that survival wasn't enough. You had to do more than just exist. You had to find something worth living for and hold on to it with both hands. For her, that something was the family she'd found in the ashes of their collective grief. A man who'd forgotten how to live until she reminded him. Children who'd needed someone brave enough to love them without trying to replace the mother they'd lost. A community that had eventually made room for an outsider who refused to disappear quietly. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was the life she'd built. And in the end, that made all the difference. Because here's what Lena Rourke understood that took most people a lifetime to learn. You don't get to choose what life takes from you. But you do get to choose what you do with what's left. You can let loss hollow you out until you're nothing but a shell going through motions. Or you can decide that surviving isn't enough, that you're going to take the broken pieces and build something new. It won't be perfect. It won't be easy. But if you're brave enough and stubborn enough and willing to do the work, it will be yours. And that's worth everything. So when people asked Lena how she ended up on a frontier ranch in the middle of nowhere, married to a widower with 2 children and a history of grief, she'd smile and tell them the truth. She'd answered an advertisement, shown up with nothing to lose, and found everything she didn't know she was looking for. Not a fairy tale. Just a story about ordinary people choosing each other, day after day, until choosing became habit, and habit became love, and love became legacy. And really, what more could anyone ask for than that?